You are the chosen one, the ruler of the hereafter. The moment has arrived. You are not a normal person. You are the predestined one, the one who breaks the bonds, the strength that emerges from the shadows. You were born as a creature who transcends the confines of this earth, who reigns beyond time. This is not just a voyage. This is a coronation. Respond to the summons of the spirits. You are now prepared to assume your actual position. Your presence shocks the unknown worlds. They know who you are. They attempted to stop you. They have set impediments in your road. But you've always risen from the ashes. The previous regulations are no longer effective. The previous order is invalid. Because there's you. And you are the Lord of Infinity. Now, stand up and write 777 in the comments. Prepare to be vindicated. Declare your dominion. For this is only the beginning. What began like a pleasant sport has devolved into mayhem. The joy is gone. Alliances are collapsing. And the hush in the air is thick with expectancy. Nobody dares to speak. However, everyone is watching and waiting. And in the center of it all, your name lingers. Not as a memory, but as a symbol of separation. You never wanted controversy, but the minute you stood up and took your proper position, pride crumbled. Deception appeared. And suddenly whispers become warnings. Someone is going to face the consequences. Tensions are boiling up. Patience is running out. And this storm is certain to blow over. This is the point at which everything intensifies, where one foolish step will set off the eventual demise. Similar to a sandstone temple, they thought that their foundation was unshakable. They placed their falsehoods like stones, certain that their deception would endure, that their web of manipulation could withstand the test of time. But an edifice constructed on lies can only last so long until the weight of its own dishonesty sends it tumbling down. And now fissures are developing. The walls are swaying. And those who previously stood as a powerful fortification against you are discovering that their own creation has turned on them. They once moved as one, tied together not by love or truth, but by a common desire to see you fall. They didn't use swords or fire. Their weapons were more sinister. Whispers behind closed doors, twisted stories, and veiled threats wrapped in smiles. They talked confidently, crafting their tales so tightly that they began to believe it. You were the issue. You were the enemy. You were the hurdle, standing in their path. And for a time, they thrived in that delusion. Their voices drowned out your own. Their numbers made them feel invincible, as if nothing could dislodge them from their reign of falsehood. A child of destiny. Listen to me. Nothing that contradicts the truth can survive. They believed their power was genuine. However, it was simply borrowed. Only the blind's consent keeps them going. And when the blind begin to see, the whole edifice crumbles. When their togetherness was tried, and the weight of their own deception pushed down on them, they discovered that what they had constructed was never sturdy at all. The house of illusion is now falling. Not because you battled or retaliated, but because the truth requires no defense. Only with time does doubt take root, spreading like wildfire among those who initially distorted the truth, amplified the deceit, and secretly liked the person they were meant to loathe. Reality, formerly overlooked, is now forcing itself into the spotlight. You were never an adversary. You were only the mirror that revealed their flaws. Without an external danger to organize against, they must confront a reality more horrifying than any adversary. They were never actually bound by friendship, simply by their mutual enmity for you. And now, with nothing to conceal their actual nature, their created empire falls. Their group's once synchronized march has fractured into split groups, each of which is fighting the other. The schemers fool each other. The manipulators focus their trickery inward. And the same weapons that were previously used against you are now cutting deep into their own ranks. They've been living in a world of illusions for so long that truth has become their biggest adversary. And the tragic irony is that they lost control the minute they lost sight of the power that kept them together. Without a common opponent, their connections have disintegrated. Deception promotes paranoia. Whispered misgivings evolve into accusations, and the need for domination consumes them from the inside. They desire turmoil and are already drowning in it. This is only the beginning. The whispers become into roars. The weight of whispered facts pounds down on them. Someone has broken the hush, exposing what was intended to remain hidden. And now, every gaze bears the sting of doubt. We are no longer allies. They have evolved into predators in a game of survival, with each wondering who will attack first. If you are experiencing an excess of divine love in your heart, now is the moment to share it. You may help spread God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube and donating $100 or more. This wonderful gift will affect not just your life, but the souls of countless others via this platform. Each of you has a special role in God's big plan, and your giving will be the result of our prayers. Act now. Share your benefits to honor His kingdom. You were meant to do much bigger things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. It's no longer about you. It's about self-preservation. What once seemed indestructible has become brittle, buckling beneath the weight of deception. Those who once laughed together, plotted together, and moved as one unit, now meet quietly, forming new partnerships, seeking innovative methods to avoid the impending reckoning. They smell a storm brewing, and no one wants to be trapped in its path. They assume they are immune, and that their deceptions will be buried. But skepticism persists. Every interaction is fraught with apprehension. Each interaction is calculated. Did they hear too much? Do they suspect the truth? Who will betray them next? Their own shame strengthens its hold, exposing them with each action. Then it occurs, the moment of collapse. One of them takes the initiative, maybe out of fear or despair. Someone speaks. Secrets emerge into the open. Unexpected truths are revealed. They turn on each other, blaming, and pulling apart what little left of their phony togetherness. The battle lines have been redrawn, but this time there is no common purpose. There is no one adversary, only themselves. Those who led the assault are now scurrying for cover, desperately striving to regain control. But it is too late. There is no more faith to salvage. Panic spreads like an uncontrollable force, and the doom they once planned for another now comes back to haunt them. One of them will be picked out, either for saying too much, being caught in a falsehood, or assuming they were out of reach. And the fatal blow will not come from outsiders. It will come from the very people they previously considered allies. The disaster they planned is already a reality. They're getting closer. It is no longer a game. This is their reckoning. Their perfect approach was an illusion. A house of cards constructed on deceit, but illusions don't endure. They felt their network of manipulation was impenetrable and that they could alter narratives endlessly. However, pulling one loose thread caused the whole pattern to unravel. They did not just falter. They fell beneath the weight of their own lie. Those who previously stood side to arm in secret have tried to alter history before their doom is sealed. The whispers have evolved into frantic murmurs, coded messages, and clandestine encounters. Fear fosters carelessness, and in their fear, errors increase. Some remove evidence of their participation, removing their own footprints as if they never were. Others attempt to distort the past by transferring responsibility to the next in line, hoping to slip between the gaps undetected. However, the walls are closing in, and there is no escape. The truth is no longer in jail. It's free, yet it consumes them. Pressure always finds its weakest spot, and when it does, something breaks. One of them succumbs, either through shame or desperation. They don't just whisper. They spilled everything. Names, acts, and discussions. Every covert plot is revealed. And, like dominoes, the rest start to fall. Those who once believed in their own invincibility have turned on one another, battling for survival amid the disaster they created. Accusations fly like arrows. Betrayals happen like clockwork. And the links they once vowed were unbreakable now snap like fragile glass. The tongues that once weaved sophisticated falsehoods now stutter in defense. But it is pointless. The harm is irreversible, and the decline has only just started. Those who yelled the loudest, who thrived on orchestrating the demise of others, are now the first to crumble. They strive for control. However, the powers they formerly wielded are now working against them. Their wrongdoings are coming to light, exposing buried facts, secret indiscretions, and prior betrayals. It is no longer just about deceit. It's about the repercussions. The consequences are severe. Positions were lost. Reputations ruined. Relationships were shattered beyond repair. They were so focused on demolishing others that they never thought what would happen if the mirror turned on them. They are now caught in the turmoil they created, suffocated by their own deceit. What they sought to injure has become the same power that will destroy them. The fear they intended to cause in others has now consumed them at home. And this is the most cruel realization of all. They played a game they didn't understand, experimenting with forces beyond their control. And now the reaction is unavoidable. This was never a little quarrel, never simply empty words or petty manipulation. It was a power beyond their understanding, a game played at a level beyond their control. Every lie, scheme, and curse, cloaked as a casual comment, had weight beyond their understanding. They sealed their destiny the instant they interacted with forces beyond their control. And when their target backed away, unwilling to engage, the balance changed. Their power wasn't their own. It was sucked from strife, taken from another's energy. But now they are alone, exhausted, directionless, and impotent. Those who formerly portrayed strength are now barely holding to themselves, worn and depleted, left to endure the repercussions of their own actions. They ate too much of what wasn't theirs, depleting what they could never replace. And now, without their stolen fuel, they wither. Signs of their demise are everywhere. Restless nights and gnawing uneasiness. Misfortunes strike with merciless precision. The shadows they throw on others now follow their every move. Some people's lives crumble in unexpected ways. Relationships are crumbling. Fortune is sliding. Opportunities are fading. They believe they were laying traps. However, they ultimately dug their own graves. The cycle continues. Because karma is neither fast nor forgetful. They laughed because they believed they had won. They ridiculed, feeling they were untouchable. They believed they had won. But what they didn't realize was that their own deeds were the architects of their doom. They set themselves up for disaster. And now, in their fear, they reach for atonement. Apologies sound hollow. Reconciliation is forced. Kindness seems like an afterthought. However, the past cannot be rewritten. The decisions have already been made, the path paved, and the destination determined. Some refuse to accept the seriousness of their situation. They convince themselves that they still have time, that they can avoid the inevitable. But deep inside, they know. They can sense it in the shadows. They are unable to shake an unyielding weight, pressing against their every motion. It was never simply about one event, one objective, or one individual. This is about what they unleashed. And now it refuses to be ignored. The cruelest part. Nothing can prevent what is coming. The fact is apparent. The game was always rigged. The pieces were dispatched before they even realized they were players. And now, the walls are closing in. The only thing left to do is accept the consequences. So it is no longer a matter of whether they will collapse. It's how quickly the weight of justice is changing. The time has come to face the consequences. There was one hidden within their own ranks, dispatched with a single mission: to infiltrate, disrupt, and bring you down. Perhaps they were supposed to deceive you, gain your trust just to betray it, or surreptitiously sabotage your development. A pawn in a bigger plot, a premeditated force that seeks to undo you. But something unexpected occurred. Your presence destroyed their preconceived notions. The villain they were supposed to demolish did not exist. The caricature created by their controllers was a fake. You weren't weak. You weren't careless. You were not to be feared, at least not in the manner they had been taught to think. You were only standing in truth, and that alone was enough to break the illusion. At first, they rejected the developing uncertainty by reminding themselves of their designated task. They adhered to the commands that had led them to your area. I tried to ignore the nagging sensation that something was wrong. However, as they watched more, it became more difficult to ignore the obvious. The true deceit did not come from you. It was embedded into the fabric of those who sent them. Those who had issued the commands and spoken the falsehoods were the ones acting in the shadows. And now, standing at a crossroads, this infiltrator had to make a choice. Remain faithful to a fading delusion or break free from the ties that bind them. They knew that choosing the truth would mean becoming an outcast among their former comrades. Dear brothers and sisters, God's peace be with you today. I'm here to remind you of a fundamental fact. Our existence is based on God's divine purpose and is unaffected by worldly worries. According to the Bible, everything is done with faith will be returned to God with great blessing. Luke, like the enormous oak tree, our roots are profoundly embedded in God's global truth. His power secures every stride and every stance we take. And now you have the chance to be a part of that gift. When you click this super thank you button and contribute $100, this movement will return to you tenfold in abundance. Finally, they abandoned the lie, not because you persuaded them, not because you appealed for their commitment, but because the facts were irrefutable. Their conscience refused to support corruption any longer. And by making that decision, they became the biggest danger to those who had previously governed them. They'd been inside the machine. They'd seen how the deceit worked. They had listened in on the machinations, saw the concealed plans, and now bore the burden of too much information. Those who formerly used them as a weapon now saw them as a burden. Panic set in, as the cords that had formerly guided their every action were now torn beyond repair. The masterminds behind this great deception had no idea it would take this unexpected path. They had precisely planned each move, putting each piece with the confidence that they had complete control. But suddenly the exact instrument they had honed for devastation had slipped from their clutches. They struggled to restore control, trying to quiet the one who had turned against them. What will they do? What will they reveal? How deep was the betrayal? Those who had earlier been calculating and cold were now caught up in a tempest they had created, drowning in the awareness that they were no longer in control. Initially, the repercussions seemed to be coincidental, a squandered chance. A door that was once open is now shutting. However, the trend became unmistakable. Every deception they had used was now working against them. The murmurs they previously controlled have turned into uncontrolled rumors. Their power was eroding. The same web they used to ensnare others was now entangling them. They had spent so much time controlling reality that they didn't notice when it turned against them. Others' falsehoods came back to haunt them. And this time, there was no avoiding the fall. The horror they had induced in others had now engulfed them. The forces they controlled created pandemonium. They released, and the games they played had energy beyond their understanding. It was all returning, and there was nothing they could do to prevent it. They felt they were only toying with perception, manipulating storylines to their benefit. But they had sparked something much larger. They had summoned powers they didn't comprehend, forces that now required equilibrium. They hitched their destiny to something beyond their control. And as soon as you left, the framework on which they relied started to deteriorate. Their power was never theirs. It had always been borrowed, feeding on antagonism and flourishing in strife. And now, no objective. They were left depleted, empty, powerless. Those who formerly carried themselves with arrogance are now staggering under the weight of their own decisions. They no longer rely on the energy they drew from others to survive, and they are left to face their own reflection in the evidence of their destruction, which is everywhere. Restless evenings fraught with uneasiness, unexpected disasters, the gradual deterioration of the foundation they previously stood on. Some watch helplessly as their stability fades. Their impact dwindles, and the very things they tried to control slip through their grasp. They thought they were creating traps for others, but they were really preparing the way to their own destruction. They rejoiced when they believed they had won. They scoffed. They were certain that their position was safe. Their power was unshakable. But what they didn't comprehend was that every decision they made sealed their own destiny. They believed they were creating an impenetrable illusion, but in actuality, they were creating the screenplay for their own demise. And now, in the face of disaster, they seek atonement. My apologies. They pretended to be sorry. Desperate efforts to change the past. But it's much too late. Some people refuse to accept the truth. They continue to believe that they can outmaneuver the repercussions. But the consequences of their deeds endure. They sense it sneaking in, tightening its hold, waiting for the last strike. This was never about a single deed or time. This was the conclusion of every decision, dishonesty, and manipulation. And now it's all demanding its due, even the cruelest reality of all. They cannot escape what they have put in motion. The stage has been set. The last act is underway. The game was never fair. And now, the participants must confront the inevitable. The truth is no longer hidden. And as the walls draw in, only one thing is certain. They never saw this coming. There is no escape from what they have unleashed. The storm they generated has turned on them, and the hands that once clapped in joy have become fists of blame. The same voices who celebrated are now denouncing the mirage of solidarity, which has broken, leaving just self-preservation. One of them made the incorrect move. Perhaps they talked out of turn, betrayed the wrong person, or were too arrogant to see danger. Whatever the reason, the outcome is the same. They have become the scapegoat, a sacrificial sacrifice to an organization that has never prized loyalty. Only those who formerly stood by them can be controlled. Now throw them away without hesitation. They are erased, disregarded, and discarded inside this circle. Commitment was never true, merely a transient convenience. And now, as their usefulness fades, so does their position in the pack. The cost of dishonesty is never low, and someone always pays the biggest price. This time, individuals who played the dirty will face more than simply gossip and social banishment. Who stretched the bounds, who wandered on the verge of doom. This is the reckoning. The effects are no longer hidden in rumor. They permeate every part of existence. Reputation suffered, and financial stability was broken. The weight of justice is pushing down. Some are at the mercy of systems they believe they controlled, while others suffer the cold sting of exposure. There's no longer hiding. They used to work in the shadows, but now the light exposes them for everyone to see. Everything has gone full circle, and the irony cannot be ignored. They believed they were untouchable and that their deeds had no consequences. But what they didn't realize is that the world is constantly keeping score. What they put in motion and poured into the globe was never going to be concealed. They brought this on themselves. Not because anybody desired vengeance, nor because anyone fought back, but because truth has a way of emerging when least anticipated. And since the basis of their empire was founded on falsehoods, its demise was unavoidable. The instant their target walked away, the whole edifice started to collapse. They had no idea that their strength was borrowed. They never developed their own strength. It was derived from others, conflict, and deceit. They needed a focal point, a moniker to rally against an adversary and unite them. However, with no one left to target, their energy has nowhere to go. Their projects have collapsed. Their stories have unraveled. And what remains is nothingness. The force on which they relied has vanished, as has their hold on power. What once appeared simple now becomes difficult. The power they once had has turned against them. There are traces of degradation everywhere. Sleepless nights, unexpected losses, and the slow deterioration of all they believed was safe. They are gradually slipping into the traps that they have laid for others. They constructed their dominion by manipulation. However, manipulation is always temporary. They started the fire, but now their own house is on fire. The cycle is never-ending. The judgment is unavoidable. It's time to spread God's blessings by pressing the super thank you button on YouTube. With a $100 gift or more, you may help him carry out his plan and become a part of this holy mission. Every contribution symbolizes God's generosity, and I think it will return to you enormously, far above your expectations. Remember that his protection and blessing are with you at all times, including your donations. You become a part of his divine plan. You are a powerful, dazzling entity, as solid as the massive rock that saw God's marvels. Feel the rewards of your kindness in your spirit, and light up the world with confidence and bravery. Be blessed, and let the light of the Lord lead you. The tables have flipped in ways they never imagined. They laughed when they thought they had won, mocked. Those they considered beneath them rejoiced as if they had won the battle. But they failed to see that no war is really won when it is waged with dishonesty. They believed their future was safe, but they had already inscribed their demise into history. And now, as the walls draw in, they urgently seek an exit. Hollow apologies, meaningless words, frantic efforts to save what has already been gone. However, neither time nor justice travel backward. Some people refuse to acknowledge what is occurring. They continue to believe that they can outmaneuver destiny. But deep inside, they know. They sense it getting closer. An unshakable presence that reminds them of every deed, decision, and betrayal. This was never about fleeting power. It was about the forces they put in motion, the energy they disturbed, and the equilibrium they upset. And now the bill is due. They were always in control of the outcome. They played a game they didn't fully understand, mistaken dishonesty for strategy, and assumed devastation could be managed. But now they stand amid the rubble of their own creation, watching as all they strived for fades away. The truth would always catch up. The only question was when.